Okay, the Nixon administration, I'll go through this one fairly quickly too. Richard Nixon was, I forget, the 70th or whatever president of the United States, and he has the distinction of being the only US president to ever resign during the course of his presidency. He was pretty much forced to, because if he didn't resign, they were going to impeach him. And he's credited, I've seen this a number of times now, that he used to say to people, I never took a cent, not one. I always had someone else do it. And if you go and look at all of the material that's in the National Archives in Washington, you will see that a number of other people were prosecuted for things like his false tax returns and so forth. He was never charged, but his accountant was and went to jail. He actually tried to bribe someone in the taxation department, and because that person did not report his approach, that person went to jail, but Nixon didn't. So it's really very interesting. You can sit there, and my husband and I sort of go, and he does his bit of research, but he's more interested in what I'm finding. We've only been through about, I'd say 2%, and we've spent a number of weeks there now going through this. But anyway, what this came from was that there was a break-in at the Democrat headquarters in the Watergate building in Washington, DC. Nixon apparently was paranoid that someone was out to get him. And so they had this, they called it the Dirty Tricks Department. And they would try and dig up material that would discredit anyone that Nixon saw as being a threat. So in this particular one, they were breaking in to put in bugs, to put listening devices in. And apparently Nixon had listening devices all over the White House. And that's how a lot of the material that they found out about what he was doing came to light, because of his own paranoia with having absolutely everything bugged. And you can go through the transcripts. The language is very colourful. They don't take it out. And you can also listen to all of the tapes. When I was there the first time, there's a guy there who had spent 6 months straight in the archives, coming in 5 days a week to go through all of the tapes. So there's a lot there. What they would do is they would go to the senior executives in companies, and they would say, the president needs so much money to get elected, and we figure that you're able to provide this much. The problem was that giving political donations by companies was illegal, but the Act had never ever been enforced. And so they were quite happy to do that. Then around 1971, early 71, they changed the law, and you had to actually, you could make donations, but you had to actually reveal it in your annual reports. And these people didn't want to put these things in the annual reports. So therefore, they found ways around it. Now, they couldn't say that it was bribery because there was no evidence in most cases that there was a quid pro quo. So the people who gave the contributions did not necessarily get anything back. But there was a lot of evidence to suggest that some of the companies that were involved in this did get favourable treatment. If they didn't get favourable treatment, they were certainly threatened that they would not be treated well if they did not come to the party on this. So American Airlines was one of the ones, they came forward first with this, and there's quite a long story as to how they traced it back. But when the burglars were caught, they had a lot of money on them, and it was all in sequentially numbered $100 bills. When they went back to their hotel room, they found a whole lot more of these $100 bills. They were able to trace those back to a bank in Florida, and then from Florida to an offshore bank in Mexico, and it came from a company in the USA. So that was the starting place. American Airlines had not been the one that provided that money, but once this became public, American Airlines was the first to come forward and say to the SEC, we did it. But they said that they were told if they didn't do it, they would be in big trouble. American Shipbuilding, the same. They said that if they didn't do it, they would be in trouble. And in fact, with this particular one, they were noted to support the Democrats. And what they were told, and got it in the interviews, all these handwritten notes are in the archives. And they said, well, we were told that we've been with the Democrats for so long, it's public knowledge that we support them, but it's time we got with the right team. So therefore, we decided we had better succumb and do it. So the right team was the Republicans, and they were going to win big that year. They knew they were going to win. This is what is really weird. They cannot work out why they were doing this, because there was no way, from all the polls, there was no way that they were going to lose. So the donations were disguised. They were channeled to offshore corporations or banks in the USA. They did a lot of round robins, taking money, claiming that they were being charged by someone in a foreign country to do some sort of work. That person would then pay the money to someone else, it would go to someone else, and then quite often someone would go to the other country and physically carry the money back into the USA. So this is where the term money laundering came from as well. A lot of people think it came from things like Al Capone and whatnot, but it actually, the term money laundering was coined as part of this investigation. Many of them said that they used the money or they disguised it by putting it through the company reports. So the reports were actually manipulated, and as I said, this is where we now have a lot of standards that are based on what happened in Watergate. So they not only did they make illegal campaign contributions, they disguised it in their financial reports, and in many cases, they, because they made up these expenses that they then claimed tax for, they were also caught under the revenue side of things. So a lot of these people were prosecuted, some of them went to jail. Richard Nixon, who was the person behind it, and also his main advisor, who was actually an accountant and who organised a lot of it, they never went to jail. They kept their money and that was it. So that's just to give you some ideas on what corruption might be, other than just bribery or the things that we usually associate with being corruption.